Thank you. Mr. Feenstra is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I am the last person, so they usually leave the best for last. Thank goodness. I just want to tell you where I'm from. I'm from Northwest Iowa. I'm 3 hours away, just straight south of you. Just got a text from my wife, Snapchat, that we have a significant hailstorm moving through. You know, it just tells me that there's things that we can't control, like hail, but there's things that we can control, like trade. And that's stuff that we need to take very seriously. And with that being said, I want to just say I'm so appreciative of Congresswoman Michelle Fischbach and what she does on the Ways and Means Committee. Michelle and I talk an awful lot about what we can do for agriculture, what we can do for trade. She's an amazing person when it comes to advocating on your behalf. I also want to give a shout out to Brad Finstead, who's also in Minnesota, who sits on the Agricultural Committee with me, where we deal with these topics every day. We got the Farm Bill coming up, and we're talking about what we can do in the Farm Bill that also can work with Ways and Means. So with that, in this year's Farm Bill, the Expanding the Market Access Program and the Foreign Market Development Programs, to me, are essential. All right? The administration is letting us down. They're not doing anything. So on the Farm Bill, what can we do with Ways on trade to make a difference? And I'd like to ask Ms. Olson, if you think about farm access programs or farm market development programs, shortly, how can that help you in your, when it comes to corn, soybeans, and these things, how can that help you and promote your product?
Well, in my testimony, I mentioned alcoholic spirits is one thing that we export. That is a unique market, and that is an important part of trade agreements. The market facilitations access is so important, and it's not just your main commodities. It has to be the full picture of American agriculture.
Yep.
And that is where the importance lies.
Yep. Thank you, Ms. Olson. Mr. Scheffelbein, I want to say this is the cleanest sale barn I've ever seen. Honest, I've been in a lot. By the way, we just had ours closed in Sioux Center, Iowa, which is tough. And hey, I just want to give you a shout out too. You had a recent tenure on the NCBA board as president, and you had extensive trips. I know you went to UK and Pacific Rim and things like that. Low-hanging fruit. What are a couple countries that you think we could go after right away to create free trade deals with when it comes to cattle?
UK.
Yep, bottom line.
They want it desperately, and it just befuddles me why we aren't at that table negotiating.
I agree, and you know what they're doing? They're doing unilateral trade agreements like with Kansas, all right? They're bypassing us as Americans. It's just crazy. Ms. Olson, I'm firing away here. Quick question. When it comes to, when you think about pork, you have 63% of our pork goes to China right now, shocking, and obviously the rest of it goes to Mexico and a few other countries. But when I get worried about, and we talked about this with African swine fever, that we in the Midwest, it's this little pocket, Iowa, Minnesota, that if African swine fever happens in North Carolina, that we could be pulled into this. And I'm a big proponent of regionalization in our trade agreements. Can you talk about that a little bit, what your thoughts are on regionalization, meaning that we do not get hit with African swine fever, and yet we could get pulled into not being able to trade with anybody because of it?
I totally agree with that. Regionalization is super important, especially when it comes to animal diseases. We saw the same thing with avian influenza. Regionalized response to that saved other turkey producers and allowed them to have a market. Same thing we would like to see apply in the pork industry.
Absolutely. Thank you. Mr. Vold, I can't be remiss to talk about dairy. And I just want to say I'm crushed right now to see milk 100 weight at under $14. All right, it is destroying our dairy industry. It's destroying a lot of my dairy members, and I'm fearful of that. And so with that said, obviously you talked about the Canada falling short. You also talk about the disadvantage we have with Europe and New Zealand and Australia. Can you explain that just a little more for the people that are listening? Why is it so catastrophic right now? And I look at developing countries and say, what can we do when it comes to cold storage? We can send product over there, but they need cold storage to make it all work. Can you explain a little bit a couple of these things?
Well, I'm going to do my best, but again, I'm not an expert in any of those areas. But from a producer perspective, when we start looking at moving product in overseas markets and so forth, I'm going to kind of go back to the two programs we were talking about earlier with the MAP and the FMD. It really allows us to get our foot in the door, especially from the Dairy Export Council side, to start training these people on how to use our products, kind of starting to create that demand for our products. And if we do that in some of the countries I referred to earlier, like Taiwan, Vietnam, Southeast Asia, Middle East, and so forth, those are our starting points to start opening up those trade agreements.
Thank you so much. And again, I want to think through, as for dairy specifically, if we can create more cold storage in developing countries, I think we can do a lot more exporting. With that, I yield back. Thank you so much, each one of you, for being here. Thank you for our witnesses. Thank you very much.